So leading into Women's Wrestling Army, when was it the time you kind of made the switch from just being a wrestler to trying kind of being the go-to, one of the go-to people for women's wrestling? I know you had a time, talked a little bit about Ring of Honor. You had a time working in Ring of Honor. And before that, you've been, one of those backstage people. When did you make the switch of like, okay, I'm going to try to do even more than just being in the ring? I want to eventually get to Women's Wrestling Army.
So even when I was a part of Ohio Valley Wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
I was learning. Paul Heyman was he was booking the shows down there. He was writing, so I would go in early and sit down with Paul
Mm.
and find out like what was he writing into the show, what direction did he want to go, why does it make sense, and that was my introduction to what being behind the scenes meant. And so since then, I've wanted to do something, and I get my little moments in there here
Mm-hmm.
and there throughout throughout my career with different individuals. So I'll
Right.
say, okay, why don't you try doing it this way? Why don't you use this kind of music? Why don't you do your entrance so that it's a memorable and it's only your thing entrance? So, or I cut promos for people for them and then they go and cut it in their own words but with a little bit of emphasis where it needs to be. So I've had little moments, and then it really was when I went to Ring of Honor the first time
Mm-hmm.
that I was starting to be able to create a little bit more because I was a veteran from WWE at that point, and they gave me an entire team to work with, and that was the Kingdom. And so for them, Mike and Taven, they hadn't had as much experience being on national television. And so it was pretty consistent where I'd say, okay, let's try it this way. Let's do our entrance this way, figure out a different tag team maneuver to go here. I think this finish works better, whatever it was. And so I'd get my hands in there a little bit. Then in Impact Wrestling, I said what I wanted the first time around. Okay, I want to do it this way. And there were moments too. I remember once with Allie, and this is insider-ish, I guess, but I don't care. Where Allie was having a tough time because she's a badass in the ring. As Cherry, she is a badass.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a badass now at AEW. But at that time, she wasn't really being able to showcase who she was as a wrestler, working with me in Impact the first time. And she said to me, I'm really nervous that this is going to, make people look at me like I don't know how to work, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, just wait. Just wait. And you will get it back tenfold. But when that time comes, you have to get it back and you have to be ready for it. And boy, did she get it back.
Oh
And like
yeah.
that turn, that moment, and that entire wedding that we had at Impact was
Mm-hmm.
what we worked for. Her being, a little bit demure and submissive at times is what made that moment on Impact. So that was really when I was like, okay, yep, I want to be behind the scenes. Because yes, I did a lot of talking during that promo and everything, but it was everyone else around me that I was interested in. I was
Mm-hmm.
interested in Allie. I was interested in what Chelsea was doing. I was interested and that's where the hot mess came from, was
Yep.
when that moment in the ring. But being able to convince everybody to be on the same page throughout that entire process is what made me want to be in this moment now, because it's only when you are behind the scenes that you're able to really see, okay, this is the talent playing field and
Mm-hmm.
this is what we can do with you. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's moments along the way.